I want to thank Stefan Carter 3 and the God of Metal 76 for becoming my latest subscribers. The God of Metal 76 also does Tna Impact reviews for those of you who are unaware. I watch them regularly, and he brings a very entertaining take on doing those Tna Impact reviews. So if you haven't checked him out, give him a look. The God of Metal 76. So Tna Impact was a taped show in Peoria, Illinois. And the show starts off with Sting coming to the ring. Sting gets on the mic and says that he told Bully Ray that the Main Event Mafia would rise and grow. And he says that he told Bully Ray that what happened last week was a sample of what's going to happen. Sting says that's why he went right to where it started. The future cornerstone of Main Event Mafia, Kurt Angle. So then Kurt Angle comes to the ring. And Angle gets on the mic and says that he and Sting were the two Main Event Mafia originals, and that the concept of Main Event Mafia was that each member had to be a former world champion. And he says that they fought for power and no one could stop them. And then Angle says that Aces and Eights are the ones with the power now, and they have been more violent than any other group. And then he says that in addition to Sting not being able to wrestle for the world title again, he was screwed out of being in the Bound for Glory series. And then Angle says that family comes and goes, but a real family stays together. And then Angle says that he and Sting are Hall of Famers and they have two goals: destroy Aces and Eights and take the world title from Bully Ray. And then he says that the newest member of Main Event Mafia will be introduced tonight. Now, I thought that this would have been the perfect opportunity for TNA to cover up that hole that you could drive a truck through. Angle not coming out to help Sting at Slammiversary would have been the emphasis on the point of being the reason for recreating the Main Event Mafia. Kurt Angle could have turned to Sting and said, Sting, I was so excited about being inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame that I left the building to go celebrate. I heard what happened, and I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you, but that won't ever happen again, etc., etc. Then everything would make sense, but instead, it doesn't. And TNA needs to do a better job of catching these holes that they create and plugging them. First Velvet Sky selling the wrong knee, going back to the original knee, and now this. So then we see a video segment of the highlights from the X Division Championship match at Slammiversary. And this serves as a prelude to the X Division Championship match coming up. So then we see Chris Sabin walking backstage, and he's grabbed from behind by Doc and dragged into an empty tractor trailer where Bully Ray and Mr. Anderson are. And Mr. Anderson and Doc hold Sabin up against the side of the trailer. Bully Ray tells Sabin to relax and wishes him luck in the X Division Championship match, hoping that he wins. And then Bully Ray tells Sabin that once Sabin wins, the right thing to do is to not exchange his X Division title for a world title shot. Bully Ray tells Sabin that Sabin wants no part of him because he is a bad person. And then he tells Anderson and Doc to let Sabin go, and they do, and Sabin backs up and leaves. Now, this was an effective segment because it allowed Bully Ray to display his excellence as an intimidator. play to his strengths, TNA, not to his weaknesses, by making him engage in ridiculous drivel about and or with Hogan and Hogan's daughter. So we have a gut check match on the show. And we see a video segment on Adam O'Reiner. Big muscled up dude. And the first thing that obviously hits my eyes were the armbands. No, TNA. No. So then we had the X Division Championship match. Chris Sabin defending against Kenny King and Suicide. Decent match. The match ends with Kenny King attempting the Royal Flush on Suicide, but Suicide counters with the tail end of a sunset flip and gets the pin. Suicide is the new X Division champion, with the assistance of his hand on the middle rope for leverage and the failure question mark of the referee in seeing Kenny King's hands extending beyond the bottom rope. And if you look at the replay, if you notice, when the referee delivers the 3 count, his head is turned away, where he's not even looking at the pin. Maybe the referee was in on helping Suicide win this match. Maybe not. Then Hogan comes out with TJ Perkins, the guy who is supposed to be the guy who is now the X Division champion. Perkins is hurt, and then Hogan informs us that TJ Perkins is and has always been Suicide, which of course is not true. Hogan says that someone jumped TJ Perkins and stole his costume. And then Hogan says that nothing pisses him off more than someone cheating in order to get to the top, and he would know. Hogan wants to know who the fake Suicide is, and then Suicide leaves the ring area, slips past the barricade, and disappears into the crowd. And it's really amazing that Suicide was able to do that when you had a security guy there twice his size who could have stopped him and didn't. So then we see Hogan backstage yelling about giving the fake Suicide until the end of the show to take off his mask and reveal his identity. So then we have a video segment for Ryan Howe, the other gut check contestant. Maybe this guy should focus on being a musician rather than a wrestler. Did I miss the photo stills or video clips of him actually wrestling? All I saw was him playing the guitar, playing the drums, playing the guitar again. So, where was the wrestling? So then we have the gut check match. Adam O'Reiner versus Ryan Howe. And then Ryan Howe comes out first doing his air guitar while holding an actual guitar. And then Adam O'Reiner comes out, and here we have another overly muscular guy with the quick walk to the ring. The match sucked. And I will say this again. Gut check is not working the way that it is being presented. We need to start seeing wrestlers who are ready to go on the roster right now, rather than the works in progress or the never gonna happens but we're still gonna try anyways. You have gut check on a quarterly basis, 4 times a year, and you have the participants compete for a roster contract, not a developmental contract. Oh yes, Animal Reiner wins the match with a snap power slam. Ho hum. And Reiner will likely get the contract because TNA will be seduced by his look. But TNA, get rid of the armbands if you do go with this guy. You don't need to make this guy your version of that guy. So then we see Sting and Kurt Angle backstage walking. And then we see Bully Ray backstage with TJ Perkins. And Bully Ray basically wants to know if Sting and Kurt Angle put him up to this whole fake suicide deal. And TJ Perkins says he doesn't know anything about it, has nothing to do with anything. He just got jumped. Someone took his costume, etc., etc. And that was pretty much that segment. So then we see a video segment recapping the Mickie James Velvet Sky saga, which leads into the Women's Championship match. Mickie James defending against Velvet Sky. Before the match starts, Mickie gets on the mic and says that the Women's Championship brings out a vicious competitive side that changes people. But that didn't apply to her. It only applies to Velvet. Mickie says that when Velvet was the champion, they were the best of friends, but now that she's the champion, they're not. And then Mickie says that she still cares about Velvet and gives her the opportunity to back out of the match so that she doesn't get hurt. And then Mickie calls her a $3 stubborn pack mule. And then Velvet goes after Mickie and the match begins. The match was so-so. Mickie wins with that deathlock submission, and she retains the Women's Championship. And while Velvet continues to cry, Mickie moves on to the next program. And that will be the winner of this upcoming ladder match between Gail Kim and Taryn Terrell. The winner of that will become the number 1 contender to the Women's Championship. Now, Mickie versus Taryn is way too soon. I think that should be a first-time meeting for Bound for Glory. Unfortunately, because of the lack of female wrestlers in the division, TNA could force that anyway. The only other option you have is Mickie versus Gail. And yes, that is going to cause a lot of groans, particularly from the Gail Kim critics. But that's all they got right now. That's all they have. So all the Gail Kim critics can blame TNA for the lack of female wrestlers, because you're going to get Mickey versus Gail. So then we have Sting and Kurt Angle backstage. Robert Roode walks past them, and Roode smiles, and then he walks off, and then Sting and Angle look at each other, and they smile at each other. Roode is better off as a heel. I can't see Roode joining Main Event Mafia, and I wouldn't understand why he would want to join. So then we see Hogan backstage with the referee from the X Division Championship match, and Hogan asks him if there was anything different about the fake suicide that would lead to him finding out what his real identity is. And the referee says no. He says, suicide looked like suicide. And then Hogan wants the ref to find the fake suicide and tell him that if he doesn't take his mask off, he will be stripped of the X Division Championship. Well, first of all, shouldn't that be Hogan's job to do this? What do you got the referee doing it for? Why don't you go find him? So then we have the Bound for Glory Series match. Magnus versus Robert Roode. Good match. The match ends with Roode attempting a superplex, but Magnus knocks him off the ropes. Magnus comes off the top rope with the flying elbow, goes for the pin, but Roode kicks out. Roode reverses a whip into the corner. Magnus elbows him and then charges, but Roode delivers a spine buster. Roode waits for Magnus to get up. He kicks Magnus into the midsection and attempts a fisherman suplex, but Magnus counters and ducks a clothesline, and then delivers a driver on Roode and gets the pin. And the winner of the match is Magnus. Magnus gets 7 points and still leads the Bound for Glory series with a total of 17 points. So this was a signature win for Magnus as he defeats a former Bound for Glory series winner, and this continues his momentum. So then we have Bully Ray, Doc, and Mr. Anderson bursting into the locker room where Chavo Guerrero, Robbie E, and Mr. Duh are. And here's when you know what direction this segment is going. First, Bully Ray wants to know if any of them is suicide. Oh yes, Bully Ray. We would actually believe that either Robbie E or Mr. Dub would actually be suicide. Yeah, I mean, I can just understand how we would come to that conclusion because, they have the same, body look, the same body frame. So, yeah, naturally, I could confuse a Robbie E or a Mr. Duh with being suicide. And if that wasn't bad, here's what was worse. I have to hear my badass world champion telling another man to watch his carbs. That other man being Mr. Duh. Watch his carbs? So then we see James Storm and told him to watch his car. James Storm and Gunner are in the ring. And Storm is saying that tag team wrestling is a science, but he and Gunner don't look like scientists. Storm says that being a 12-time tag team champion means you don't have to like your partner, but if you get the job done, that's all that matters. And then Storm is interrupted by Robbie E's music. And Robbie E comes out with Mr. Duh and Tara. Let me try to describe this segment as painlessly as possible. Robbie E says that he and Mr. Duh are the bromans. Storm says he keeps hearing the word bromance. Storm calls Tara a butterface. Mr. Duh charges Storm and gets decked by Gunner. And that was that. I have a name for the tag team of Robbie E and Mr. Duh. The Glorified Jobbers. So, Tara wasn't important enough to be present for the State of the Women's Division address last week, as lousy as it was. But yet, TNA felt that she was important enough to be on this show for that. And yes, I know that Tara and Mr. Duh are still connected, and I hate that shit. Never understood it, and it's never been a good look for her. And now she's been reduced to a valet, pretty much. Sucks. She's better than this. So then we see Sting and Kurt Angle backstage, and they say that they are going to go talk to the newest member of the Main Event Mafia. So then we have another Bound for Glory series match. Samoa Joe versus Mr. Anderson. Decent match. And during the match, Doc and Mike Knox come to the ring, and Joe attempts to try to hold them off. Mr. Anderson comes up on Joe and DDTs him. Anderson goes for the pin, but Joe gets his shoulder up. Anderson slugs Joe a couple of times and comes off the ropes, but Joe catches him in a snap power slam. And then you see Doc and Knox are on the ramp on the outside of the ring. But then you see Sting and Kurt Angle come to battle them and send them running. Anderson tries to execute his finisher, but Joe holds the rope, sending Anderson to the mat. Joe puts the rear naked choke on Anderson and gets the win. The winner of the match is Samoa Joe, so he gets 10 points, which gives him a total of 12 points. And then Sting and Kurt Angle come to the ring, and they all hug each other, so obviously that means that Samoa Joe is the newest member of the Main Event Mafia. So another guy that did not come out to help Sting at Slammiversary is now someone that Sting considers to be family. TNA logic. And then backstage we see Sting giving Samoa Joe his new suit, and then both he and Kurt Angle make a Men's Warehouse reference. So then Hogan comes to the ring and he calls out the fake suicide. Hogan either wants the mask or the X Division title. And then Hogan starts blabbering about facing giants, winning his first world title. So then Hogan wants the fake suicide to take off his mask, but he refuses. And then Bully Ray comes out, and he says that he's in agreement with Hogan. He wants the fake suicide to remove his mask, but the fake suicide won't. And Bully Ray says that the fake suicide only has the title because Bully Ray put the fear in Chris Sabin. And once again, Hogan tells the fake suicide to take off his mask. And then the fake suicide begins talking with a distorted voice. And he says to Bully Ray that Bully Ray is always asking people if they know who he is. And then he says to Bully Ray, "Do you know who I am?" And the fake suicide says that he has beaten Bully Ray before. And then you could tell that the distortion was decreasing, and you started to make out who the voice belonged to. And then the fake suicide takes off the mask, and it's Austin Aries. Aries says that he will exercise option C, and he will beat Bully Ray for the world title. And the show ends. Now, I gave this a long thought. Why did this happen? And I think I know why. Let's go back to Sabin's promo a couple of weeks ago. Sabin talked about the title match that he had last year against then X Division champion Austin Aries. And that, of course, was the match in which he injured his ACL for the second time. And he said that if he had not suffered that injury, he could have won the X Division championship, and he could have gone on to cash it in for a world title shot, and maybe he could have been the eventual world champion at that time, last year. Maybe TNA is doing this. Maybe they put the title on Aries so that Sabin can face Aries for the X Division title and recreate that scenario from last year. Only this time, Sabin wins the title and then goes on to exchange it for a world title shot at Destination X. Now, the only problem with this is that it wouldn't be a one-on-one match because of the three-way rule. And I think that TNA should make an exception this time and have Sabin face Aries one-on-one. Because that would be much more dramatic, because you have all these angles that you can feed into that one-on-one matchup. You have last year's match where Sabin suffered the injury. You have Aries going on to cash the X Division title in for a world title shot, eventually winning the world championship. Sabin's rehabilitation. Sabin's comeback. Sabin winning the X Division title. Aries using an underhanded way, dressing up as the fake suicide to win the X Division title again. I mean, you have all these different ones that you can feed into this match and really, really blow it up and make it a bigger deal. But of course, it's likely that TNA is not going to do that. It's going to be a three-way match, and it just takes away from that. And that's why this three-way rule is really hindering the division, because it really needs to be a one-on-one match between Sabin and Aries. But of course, it's going to be Sabin, Aries, and some other wrestler. And it'll probably be TJ Perkins, because Aries was the guy that jumped him and took his costume. So, and it's, to me, unfortunate that it has to be that way, because it really should be a one-on-one match. And there's no reason why TNA can't do this. but TNA. For the many times that you don't show proper logic, show proper logic this time. Chris Sabin, Austin Aries for the X Division title, one-on-one. Do it. I'm TazMart 2002, and that was my TNA Impact Analysis for June 27th, 2013. If you're listening to me on YouTube, please leave your comments below. Click the like or dislike button, and if you subscribe, I would really appreciate it. If you're listening to me on the Wrestling News Talk Facebook page, please leave a comment below and click the like button if you like what I've been saying. If you have any questions about TNA or wrestling in general that you would like for me to answer, you can reach me on Twitter, TazMark2002, TazMark2002, and if your comments exceed the 140, get at me with an email, TazMark2002@gmail.com. I thought it was an okay show. Okay show. Someone asked me this past week if there was any way that Hogan does not get a title shot at Bound for Glory against Bully Ray for the World Heavyweight Championship. I said yes. Someone has to tell him no. And this person said, that's it? I said, yeah, that's it. Hogan needs to hear a word that he hasn't heard in a long time. No. Hogan hasn't heard that word since he came to TNA. But here's the thing. Dixie Carter is not going to be the one that tells him no. She has been too brainwashed to even think of such a concept. It has to be someone else. Who will it be? Who will it be? Hogan is not going to stop himself. He's not going to sit down and think and say, you know what, maybe I should pull out of what I want to do and let an AJ Styles get that title shot. Hogan is incapable of doing anything like that. Someone has to tell him no. I'm TazMart 2002, gone.